Something I've noticed as I've gotten older is that people say they want honesty. I just want you to be honest with me. We say it in friendships, we say it in relationships, we teach our children to tell the truth. But I'm starting to wonder if we actually want honesty. Because sometimes the minute you stop saying what keeps everybody comfortable and start saying what you really think, suddenly you've changed. You're a difficult person. You're being very rude. Jesus, you got an attitude. And I find that really interesting. So I actually started reading about this because I wanted to understand it a little better. And I found something I hadn't heard of before. There's actually a term psychologists use called prosocial lies. Basically, these are lies we tell because we believe we're protecting somebody else's feelings. And when I read that, I thought, well, of course we do that. Your friend comes out wearing something she absolutely loves and says, "What do you think?" And maybe you're looking at her thinking, "Oh God," but you don't want to hurt her. She loves it. But are you going to say that? Are you going to say, "Oh God"? Probably not. You might say, "You look lovely." And maybe that's not dishonesty in the horrible sense of the word. Maybe that's just kindness. Research has actually found that people sometimes respond positively to these little protective lies, particularly when the truth would cause unnecessary emotional harm and wouldn't actually help the other person. And that got me thinking, because there's a huge difference between being honest because something needs to be said and being honest because you want an excuse to hurt somebody. We've all met those people. I just tell it like it is. Okay. But nobody asked you. If somebody hasn't asked you what you think of their body, what you think of their face, their marriage, their children, their clothes, or their life, maybe keeping your mouth shut isn't dishonesty. Maybe it's just manners. And I think sometimes people hide cruelty behind the word honesty. But then there's another kind of honesty. And this is the one that interests me. It's when you finally say, "No, I don't want to do that. I don't agree with you. That really hurt me. I don't like the way you spoke to me. I'm not accepting this anymore." Suddenly, that honesty becomes a problem. And why? Because now your honesty isn't protecting somebody else's comfort, it's protecting you. And I think that's where things get very interesting. Because sometimes when somebody says you've changed, what they actually mean is, you've changed in a way that no longer works for me. Maybe you used to say yes to everything. Maybe you used to stay quiet. Maybe you used to explain yourself for half an hour because you desperately wanted somebody to understand why you felt the way you did. And then one day you simply say, "No, I'm not doing that." And suddenly you're rude. I don't think every uncomfortable truth needs to be spoken. I don't. And the research doesn't really support such a simple idea either. One series of studies found something fascinating. People sometimes saw a person telling a well-intentioned lie as more benevolent than somebody telling a selfish truth. Other research has also shown that our judgment depends a lot on the intention behind what somebody says. So apparently, even psychologically, honesty is more complicated than we pretend. And I think intention matters enormously. Why am I telling you this? Am I telling you because you genuinely need to know? Am I telling you because this affects me and I need to speak up? Am I telling you because something needs to change? Or am I telling you because I want to embarrass you, hurt you, or make myself feel superior? Those are completely different things. And maybe there's another question we should ask ourselves too. When somebody is honest with me, and I don't like what I'm hearing, is that person actually being rude? Or am I uncomfortable because they've said something I didn't want to hear? That's a harder one, isn't it? Because it's very easy to talk about everybody else's inability to handle honesty. It's much harder to look at your own, though. I know there have been times in my life when somebody has said something to me, and my immediate reaction has been, "Excuse me?" And then later, when I've calmed down, I've thought about it. And sometimes I've had to admit they had a point. I didn't like it, but they had a point. And then there are the other times where I've thought, no, that wasn't honesty. That was somebody being cruel and using honesty as an excuse. And I think as I've got older, I've become much more interested in knowing the difference. Because honesty doesn't have to be brutal. You can tell somebody the truth and still care about how you say it. You can disagree without humiliating them. You can get a boundary without attacking them. You can say no without writing a 3-page explanation for why you're allowed to say no. And you can also decide that some thoughts simply don't need to leave your mouth. Maybe maturity isn't saying everything we think. Maybe it's knowing what needs to be said, why we're saying it, and how to say it without deliberately causing harm. But I also think we need to stop automatically calling people rude when what we really mean is, I didn't like hearing that. Because somebody making you uncomfortable doesn't automatically mean they've treated you badly. Sometimes discomfort tells us something. Sometimes it's telling us that somebody crossed a line. And sometimes it's telling us that somebody finally stopped letting us cross theirs. So when did honesty become rude? I don't think it did. I think honesty, kindness, and boundaries are 3 different things. And somewhere along the way, we've mixed them all together. So maybe before we speak, we ask, is it true? Does it really need to be said? And why am I saying it? And before we accuse somebody else of being rude for telling us something we didn't want to hear, maybe we ask one more question. Was it actually rude? Or did I just not like the answer? I'd really like to know what you think about this one. Would you rather somebody tell you a difficult truth or a kind lie? Because I'm not even sure my answer is the same in every situation.